Hello, ladies. I think I'm live here, and just as I'm hopping on live, I'm having a massive hot flash, of course. But nevertheless, I'm here, and it will go away in a moment. So, if I don't see anybody on right now, but if you're joining or if you come into the live, say hello. Let me know that you're watching. I love to have people engage when I'm going live. So if you hop on, let me know you're there. Okay, so let's dive in today. So I want to cover two things today. One is I want to share, as I posted what I was going to talk about today, is the 3 steps to change your marriage for good. And so I want to cover that piece, and then I want to talk about my upcoming group program, which is going to be based on these 3 things that I talk about today. Because what I realized, sorry for the lighting there, what I realized was the first program that I did put out, all about communication, while that is super important, what it didn't include, or at least what I didn't have as part of the description, was these really incredibly important steps, these 3 steps. Because when I sat down and I really thought about it, I was like, these are the 3 most important things, right? Because I can teach you communication, I can teach you how to resolve conflict, I can teach you about how to solve your issues, and all of those kind of practical things, which are obviously very important. But without these 3 important steps, the communication skills that I offer you or share with you are not going to make a difference. So that's why, after thinking it more through, I was like, this is the foundation of what people need to know, what women need to know if they really want to change their relationship, these 3 foundational pieces. And then within those 3 pieces, those 3 steps, that foundation are all the other things, like the communication, like learning how to stop fighting, how to disagree without it escalating into an argument, how to feel more confident. And so all of those things will fall under these 3 steps, which is the foundation for a happy, healthy relationship and life, really. So again, if you hop on live, let me know you're here. I love to have engagement when I am going live. I mean, I don't mind talking to myself either, but it's always nice to have people on. So the 3 most important steps that you can take in order to really change your relationship and change it for good, okay? Number 1 is the mindset to have a healthy marriage, or any relationship, really. I say marriage because I primarily speak to married women, married couples, but really this is across the board. Like if you're in a committed relationship, if you're have a difficult relationship with your parents or your mother or a child or a friend or any relationship at all, the things that you learn, these 3 steps that you will learn, can be applied to any relationship, because it is the foundation for any solid, healthy relationship. Mindset. And so what do I mean by that? So many people the people that I work with, they come to me, and I was in this position too, and they have stories. We all have stories. We have a particular narrative about our marriage. My marriage sucks, or I'm really not happy. And then we have all these other stories about our partner. If he would just change, he's, whatever adjectives we use to describe other people, our partner, or our marriage, becomes sort of this label. It becomes a label. It becomes the lens through which we see everything. And we practice these thoughts and these narratives and these stories over and over and over again, and they just become part of our thinking, and they become our truths. Like, we believe them to be true. And if we're always kind of recycling these stories and there's nobody kind of outside us to point out that, maybe this actually isn't true, then we go right on, we keep believing it. Because most people in your life, friends or family, if you're venting to them and complaining about your partner or your husband, like, oh, he's such a jerk and he did this and I can't believe he did that, your friends and family are usually like, yeah, you're right. He's such a jerk. I mean, I remember it from my own marriage years ago when I would complain. And you got to be careful here too, because then once things start shifting and you've already told like your whole family, like, he's such a jerk. Now they're like on your side. But then when things get better, they still might be thinking, oh, he's such a jerk. And you're like, no. Now you're trying to repair that whole piece, right? But so chances are you have these beliefs, you have this narrative, and nobody challenges that. The people in your life are going to support that. They're going to support you, right? They're going to rally behind you and be like, yeah, that's right. That's right. He's a jerk. So even more reason for you to believe that what you're thinking is true. And then what you do, what all of us do, is we then look in our environment, in our day-to-day life, for all the ways that that story is true. We look for the evidence to support our story. So if I was thinking, well, my husband doesn't care, he doesn't even really love me anyway, he's not interested in what I have to say, and then I would try and have a conversation with him about something, and he wouldn't respond right away. That was like one of my things way back when, was like, he's a slow processor. And when it would take him some time to respond, I would make it mean he's not listening to me, he doesn't care. So then anytime that would happen, I would use that as evidence to support my story. Like, see, there he goes again. He never listens to me. He doesn't care about me. What I have to say isn't important, right? So I just collect all the evidence of why this story is true, that he doesn't care about me, he's not interested in what I have to say. So you can learn all the communication tools that I teach. I can show you how to do conflict well, all the practical things. But if you have this story in your head, and, your story is obviously different than my story, and we have lots of stories. So one of the most important things that you have to do if you truly want to change your relationship for good is get a really good look into your mindset. What are the stories I'm telling myself? What stories am I recycling? What thoughts am I believing day in and day out that are creating my current reality? Because whatever we think about is what we bring about, right? You guys have probably all heard that. What we think about, we bring about. So whatever our dominant thoughts are, whatever those dominant stories are, that's exactly what is going to show up in our life. We can't necessarily see the insides of our brains very clearly. We're not really good at seeing ourselves or witnessing our thoughts. And that's why having a coach help you see things that you can't see your blind spots, is so crucial. Because otherwise you just stay stuck in these stories. And you just get more of the same, more of what you think about, right? So I have my own coach. She helps me in my business because all of the same sorts of things that maybe came up in my marriage show up in a different way in my business, right? Like, being an entrepreneur is like, you really have to like come face to face with yourself. So I have a business coach, and she helps me see things that I can't see, because otherwise my business would never have grown the way that it has grown over the past 2 years. She has helped me see things that I'm not able to see, so I can change them, change my mindset, and move towards the things that I truly want. So, mindset is number one. And actually, I would have to say, probably one of the most important steps, shifts that you could work on to change your relationship or anything in your life, really. It all comes back to mindset. Okay, number two are the triggers. Triggers, reactivity. How are you reacting? What triggers are showing up for you? This is the second area that you want to dive into, because what happens in most relationships, and what I've seen in the people that I work with, and myself included, right? I always include myself in all of this because the reason I teach this work is because I've gone through all of this myself. Which isn't to say like I've arrived. There is an arrival. It's a journey. It's not, you don't suddenly like get to a place and the work is done. The work is like it's ongoing and evolving over time. So the typical pattern, and you probably can relate to this if you're here in my group, is that when we are triggered, when we have a reaction, we are focused on the other person. That could be our partner, but that also could be our kid. It could be, the waitress at the restaurant you're dining at. It could be the car that cuts you off. It could be anything where you're triggered and you have an emotional reaction, right? So what we typically do is we put that emotion outside of us. I have no idea where I got that. Might have been the gym. So when we get the emotional reaction, we put it on the other person. We complain, we blame. We're like, oh, like we'll do with our husbands or we'll do with our children, right? And so we spend our lives blaming other people for reactions that we're having within, right? And as long as we're doing that, as long as we're looking outside at other people and blaming them for the way that we feel, we can't ever be fully in control of our lives, right? When you're in that position, you're sort of like a victim to your circumstances, right? It's being done to you, right? And it feels like you have no control. The trigger happens because of what this other person did. That's what we think, right? Well, I wouldn't have to get so pissed off if he didn't do X, Y, and Z, right? We really believe that reaction comes from something somebody else did, right? So the second piece of this then is like, any trigger that you have, anytime you are triggered, you have to change the pattern. Instead of going outside and blaming and criticizing and looking at the other person, this is an opportunity to go internally and start asking yourself, why am I being triggered right now? What is this bringing up for me? Why am I having this reaction? Right? And so this is where right? Because when we are in reactive mode and we're blaming, we totally disconnect from ourselves, right? And we totally get into this like helpless position, this sort of victim stance of, again, it's being done to me, rather than knowing that I get to respond. I get to take, and when I take control and when I take my power back and when I'm coming from an empowered place, then I know I own my reaction, right? And so it's not about blaming you, but it's about reconnecting with yourself, reconnecting with what's going on for me internally, right? That is causing me to be triggered by this. So for example, if I were to go back to the things that used to trigger me in my own marriage, which was like when my husband wouldn't listen to me, I got triggered and blamed him. But when I started to turn and look at myself, what that trigger was really about for me was not being listened to. And I can trace, fly away here, sorry. I can trace all of that back to my own childhood, my own wounds of not being listened to, not feeling important, right? It wasn't about him. And it wasn't even that he wasn't listening to me. It's like he literally was taking time to process. And he had told me that before, and I literally didn't believe him. It was about me. Again, it was about my own wounds and my own lack of feeling important. And I needed him to like validate that for me, right? Which is no longer the case, because I got all those triggers were opportunities for me to finally start healing those hurt parts within me, right? And then when you heal those hurt parts within you, then then you are back in control. You feel confident. Your self-worth or your self-esteem or your validation doesn't have to come from outside of you. You can give that to yourself. You can stop blaming other people, and you get to be in charge. You're no longer a victim to your circumstances. And that truly is one of the greatest gifts that you can give yourself. I mean that. Like when I finally stopped living in reaction to everything outside of me, it is so freeing. I mean, that is like the kind of peace, internal peace, that there's no price tag on that. Like that is like you live a more peaceful life when you're not living in reaction to everything around you. So many people spend a lifetime doing that, and it's exhausting. And I knew there was another way, which is why I chose to hire a coach to do my own internal work, so I no longer had to live in reaction to everything around me. And you don't have to either. Like if you can relate to that, that's something you can change. And I'll get to that in a little bit, because that is something that I am going to be teaching in my upcoming group program. Let me move on, because I don't want to make this too long, and I'm already at like 17 minutes. Okay, so the third piece. Okay, so the first piece was mindset. The second piece was triggers and what that teaches us about ourselves and how do we reconnect with ourselves. That third piece is breaking the pattern of going back into the past and moving towards the future. We have to have a future focus. You have to know what you want instead. So many of us stay stuck in the problem and what is, but we have no idea of what we want, right? And so without that, without sort of this long-term vision, this place that you are working towards, you're going to continue to go back into the past, and then you're going to stay stuck in the problem, right? So and let me give you an example. So when I go back to my relationship, all I could focus on was what was going wrong in my relationship time and time again. Again, gathering all the evidence, that was the mindset piece, getting triggered and then blaming him, but then not really knowing how I wanted things to be different. It was more like I stayed stuck in complaint. I rehashed all the stories from the past, but I didn't know what I really wanted. I had a lot of goals for him, but I had none for myself. Like, who did I want to be? How did I want to feel? And when you know that, then each and every action you take during the day, you can ask yourself, is this truly in alignment with who I want to be and the relationship that I want to create, the life I want to have for myself, right? We have to be focused on what we're headed towards. We have to have a vision of that. And you want to become that in order to create that. So a big piece of this is really taking responsibility, radical responsibility for yourself. But I see this as an act of self-love. Because when you start to take responsibility for your life, you get to create whatever you want. You get to have whatever you want. But you first have to decide, what do I want that future to look like? Who do I want to be as a partner, as a wife, as a mother, as a sister, as a friend, right? I know for me, I didn't want to be a person that reacted to everything outside of me. I knew I didn't want to be a person that, like, when my father said something that, I crumbled and went home and spent, 2 days complaining about him in my own brain, wasting my own energy, wasting time. Like, I didn't want that for myself. I wanted to be somebody that was, my father could say what he wanted to say, and I would still be okay. So that all took taking responsibility for how I was showing up, who I was being, and how I was responding. But that all came from me keeping my eye on the prize of where I was headed, the future I wanted for myself. That's what we have to focus on. We can't, if you keep going back to the past and keep reliving, and if you continue to think it's not going to happen based on past, then you keep yourself, again, stuck in the past. We've got to move forward. You have to decide what that looks like, what you want, and who you want to be. When you show up as the best version of you and you work towards that, again, this is a gift and an act of self-love, because so much of what happens in your relationship, if it's not going well, is because you don't have that solid relationship with yourself. And I know that was what my problem was. Like, I was not feeling good enough, and I was wanting my husband to make up for that. I was wanting other people to make up for that. And when I finally had some awareness around that, and I started to heal those parts of me that were hurt and wanted external validation, like, everything changed for me. And sure, it's still a work in progress. Like, I work at this every single day. It's not just a one and done. It is a lifestyle. It is, I've used this analogy before, like, you wouldn't go to the gym for a few weeks and then expect that you could stop and maintain your fit body, right? It literally becomes a way of life. And this is true as well. So when I work with clients, they come to me for 3 months, 6 months, sometimes a year. They learn these things, they practice them every day until they become habit, so that when we stop working together, they have evolved into a new lifestyle, a new way of being, a new relationship with themselves, with the people in their life. So those are the 3 most important things, the most important steps, or the most important shifts that you have to embrace if you truly want to change your marriage or any relationship for good. And this is where therapy misses the mark, because I have found in my own experience as a therapist and being in therapy that there is a lot of empathy and compassion and support, but it supports the story that you're in. And what you need more than anything is to get out of that story, to create a new story. And that's why coaching is so powerful. It helps you create the story that you want to be living in. So the other piece of this, so those 3 steps, those 3 shifts are exactly what I want to be covering in my new group program. Before I had, when I was launching the program, it was all based around communication. And what I realized was it just wasn't really aligned with me. And I think that's part of the reason that there was not a ton of interest, was because I wasn't feeling completely aligned with it. And so I took some time to think about that and really, like, why isn't this sitting with me? Why is this not right? And then I realized, like, what I was missing was the most important parts of it, right? Which is the 3 steps that I just talked about. And all the other stuff falls under that. Because if you don't work on these 3 things, all the other stuff doesn't matter. It's not going to help you change. And so I've decided that rather than just having this group program be about communication, it's going to be covering in depth these 3 steps that I've just talked to you about. Okay, the mindset piece, the triggers, and a future focus with taking radical responsibility to create the life and marriage that you want. And this is going to be an 8-week group program. I want to have max 10 women because I want to keep it small and I want to keep it intimate and I want it to feel safe for people to share. And so there's going to be video content, but then there's going to be weekly group coaching. So you'll watch whatever video you get at the beginning of the week, and then we will coach live middle of the week to answer any questions, to have hot seat coaching, to help you through anything that's come up for you during the week. And this is really where the amazing stuff happens, right? This is where you get your opportunity to connect in real time the stuff that you've been learning on the video or in the workbooks, and really in that moment get coaching to shift out of maybe an old story, to figure out why you were triggered in a particular moment, or to really think, connect with that future that you're wanting to create with yourself. And you get my eyes on you, coaching you to point out your blind spots. So it's really the same kind of work that I do with my one-to-one clients, except we're going to be doing it in a group container. And I think there's something really amazing about group work. I've done a lot of group work with other people, and it's nothing better than like being surrounded by other women who are going through similar things, and to feel like you're not alone, but also to learn from their experiences. So what I find in my groups is like when somebody else is getting coached, even if it's not specific to my whatever I have going on, I can always learn from somebody else getting coached, because it's going to be similar to what the other women's issues are. So no matter what it is, it can apply to you. So I want to invite any of you that are watching this that are interested in this 8-week group program to reach out to me to find out if this is a fit for you. I am going to post with more details so you can take a look. But this is really for the woman that is ready to go all in on changing things for good. Maybe you're somebody that's done therapy before and it didn't work for you. Maybe you're somebody that's, read all the books or tried to figure this out on your own, tried to make agreements with your partner, but nothing ever sticks. And I'll tell you, the reason it doesn't stick is because you're missing these 3 important pieces. So, 8 weeks, 10 women, me in your back pocket. In addition to the 8 weeks of group coaching, I'm also offering a 30-minute individual session for each person as well. So again, this is for the woman that's ready to go all in, is ready to change things for good, is ready to take responsibility for themselves, knowing that this is an act of self-love. This isn't about self-blame. This is about strengthening the relationship with yourself. So many of us have like a negative dialogue running through our head. Judgment, there's judgment of our partner, but there's even more judgment of ourselves, right? Our relationships with other people are a mirror of us. So when we're judging our partner, we're judging ourselves. We just aren't connected to that. And that's the kind of thing that I'll be covering in my 8-week program, is really reconnecting to yourself. Understanding or knowing what that dialogue is that you keep saying to yourself day in and day out that's not supporting you, right? So the self-doubt and the judgment and the criticism of yourself, that can't possibly, like, if you're not loving here inside, it's going to be really hard to love your partner or to even receive love from your partner if you're not feeling worthy of it, right? We have to heal inside here in order to have change that lasts a lifetime. And this is truly the most important work you could ever do in your life. If you truly want to lead like a fulfilling, connected, peace, and joy-filled life, this is the work. And I want to help you do it. So if this sounds like something that you are interested in and it feels like a good fit for you, reach out to me. Starting hopefully in 3 weeks, I'm going to post the date. I'm going to confirm the date, and then I will post it and let you all know. But if you're interested, please reach out. I would love to have you. This is going to be so much fun. And look forward to hearing from you. If you have any questions at all, drop them in the chat or send me a DM. All right. Have a wonderful day, you guys. Bye.